So welcome everybody. This webinar today is all about building your LinkedIn personal brand, and we're essentially presuming we're starting from zero at this point. So that doesn't require you to have you don't necessarily have to have a LinkedIn account to start with where we're going from today, but obviously it's a bonus if you have. So in terms of what we're going to run through, I'm going to give you a quick overview about me, the importance of building a personal brand, going through what makes a good LinkedIn profile, how to network and build connections on here, how to find job opportunities, how to build relationships with recruiters, a little bit about content creation, and then as I mentioned, I've got time for a Q&A at the end. So just as a bit of background into me, I graduated university in 2020 and my current job role as Senior Brand Manager at Lever Brands. I don't have a degree in marketing. I didn't study marketing. I actually have a degree in German studies, a bachelor's in that. And I actually got a job right off the bat from graduating university. I was recruited via my LinkedIn profile for a job in the consulting space because of my language skills and because of the fact that I had my language skills reflected on my LinkedIn profile. So I'll have a little bit more on that later. But just in terms of where I'm at in my current job, I'm a senior brand manager at a company called Lever Brands. Essentially, it's my job to run accounts on LinkedIn of CEOs and founders who run businesses kind of from 6 to 8 figures. I create content for them. I have weekly calls with them where I find out about their industry, their interests, their learnings. And it's essentially my job to show up as them on LinkedIn and kind of create them a professional, polished, personal brand. I was actually listed, I don't know if any of you have heard of Favicon. You do actually get listed based on your presence on LinkedIn and on different social platforms. So maybe you've seen Favicon on Instagram or Facebook, etc. But I was actually nominated as one of the top 20 personal branding influencers in the UK in 2025. And I'm still on the list this year. And then if any of you out there are studying marketing, you might be aware of a body called the Girls in Marketing community. I was selected as a top 24 marketer to follow in 2024 and help them put together a course on actually building your personal brand part of their marketing team. And I'm 27 years old, so I'm quite fresh to the LinkedIn and job world myself. But again, in just such a short space of time, I'm going to teach you how I've leveraged LinkedIn to land where I am today. So in terms of why personal branding matters and what it actually is, I'm going to be completely honest. When I graduated from university, I'd never heard of a personal brand in my life. So then when I started hearing this word get thrown around, I was like, what are people talking about? What does it even mean? But just to kind of cut a long story short, the definition of what a personal brand is essentially how you present your skills, your strengths, your values, and the career interests to the rest of the professional world. So everybody has a personal brand, whether they realize it or not, whether you post on LinkedIn or not. Your lecturers have an opinion on you, your friends have an opinion on you, your family have an opinion on you. It's basically a combination of how you show up, what people remember, and why that matters. So with regards to LinkedIn, how you show up in terms of your personal brand, it includes things like your profile, the content that you create, and interactions that you kind of have that shape with your employers and with your connections. What people remember, your personal brand, people don't necessarily need to know your life story in terms of every single interest you have or what you've done since the day you were born. Your personal brand is essentially something that's makes you very memorable to your audience. So for example, in my case, I'm known for being a personal branding expert on LinkedIn. So whenever somebody comes to my profile or kind of thinks of me in terms of my personal brand, what I want them to think is, okay, Carina is a go-to person to help people build their personal brand. For some of my clients, they're, for example, leadership coaches who help CEOs and founders. When somebody thinks of them, the first thing I want someone to think of is leadership coach, CEO, founders. They can kind of help people at a senior level. So people should be able to quickly understand who you are, what you're good at, and in this instance, what kind of role that you're looking for. And the reason it matters is because I'm not sure how many of you have graduated so far, but the market is incredibly competitive, and I don't think that's ever going to go away. But what I can tell you is a lot of students out there do not leverage their LinkedIn profile in a way that they think they should. Yes, it's important to have a good CV. Yes, it's important to have a good cover letter. But actually, so many employers go on and check your LinkedIn. And if it's just bare, you can't just rely on, for example, the school you went to landing you that dream job and perhaps the way you could have 20 years ago. So employers are looking for your credibility, your network, and how you can support your job search. So to kick things off with the basics, your LinkedIn profile is split up into several different categories. The photo that you select for LinkedIn does matter. So I see so many people when I get connect requests are like in a mirror selfie, it's blurry, their whole family are in it, their dog's in it. It's just not needed for your LinkedIn profile. This is just your professional headshot that's going to go on your profile. And what a lot of creators and people tend to do is put like a colour behind it, just so it contrasts a bit more kind of on the scroll. Really easy to do. You don't need to go and pay for a professional photo shoot. We're of an age generation where most of our friends have got really good phones, really good cameras. As long as you've got like a plain wall behind you, kind of you're wearing clothes you feel comfortable in, there's no reason why you can't just take your photo, for example, on a good iPhone or a Samsung camera. But you should look professional and approachable. So you might look really good on your night out, but that's not the photo to use for your LinkedIn. Try and keep it as like professional and smart as you can. And again, think about the industry that you're going into. So if you want to like finance or like, you might want to look by like a blazer. If you want to go into like a creative role, you may kind of want to reflect that in like the clothes you wear, like a colourful jumper. There's different things to think about when taking the headshot. It doesn't need to be obviously a full body length, just kind of from the shoulders above is fine. You then get what's known as the headline on LinkedIn. So this is the section that is just below your name on the platform. And a lot of people don't utilize this section very well. So for mine, what it tends to be used for is like your credibility and kind of, again, like a summary statement of like what's really key to you. But why it's important to get your headline right is because every time you comment on someone's post, the first 50 characters of your headline actually come up. So when people are kind of scrolling through and kind of looking at who's commented, they will see that first line of your headline in their comments. So you want to make sure that every time someone has the opportunity to read that, they're finding out exactly about you, what you want them to. So in my instance, because I'm quite proud of the fact that I got in the Favicon Top 20 personal branding space, I lead mine with the Favicon Top 20 personal branding influencer. Favicon is a very well-known platform on LinkedIn, so I know that when people are scrolling through that, that kind of gives me that instant credibility that I'm looking for. And then I follow it with like senior brand manager at Leather Brands. Now, a lot of you are starting to think, well, I don't have a job title, so what do I put in there? There's different ways you can tackle your headline. You can kind of have whatever you're a student as. So you could say, fourth year marketing student, for example, so people kind of know you're looking to graduate soon, as opposed to someone being in the first year of marketing. But a lot of the time, they're a great opportunity to kind of showcase perhaps what you're looking for. So you could say, for example, marketing student looking for a placement once I graduate, kind of telling people instantaneously that like you are open to work, or seeking a role in X industry, for example. Again, it's kind of hard to give it a broad example given that you're all from different backgrounds and have different degrees. But the idea is like you create a statement that's like very tailored to you and what you're looking for. You then have your about section on LinkedIn. So this is where you share like who you are, what you do, and what you're looking for. The examples I've given on here are from my profile directly. They obviously are condensed down for the presentation, but do feel free to go and have a stalk of mine after this call. But essentially, think of it like a cover letter or a CV. It's your opportunity to kind of showcase your history, your background, and kind of how you got to where you are today. So it can be where you're studying, key modules that you've kind of taken part in, kind of what qualifications you've got potentially already from being at university, but also any like work experience that you may be doing. So it may be like final year marketing student, currently doing modules on XYZ. Dissertation is on this. As part of my studies, I've done an internship in this role or this role, and then wrap the about section up with the fact that you are open to work and you're looking to find your next potential opportunity and that you want people to reach out to you. What a lot of people do when they're currently in work is they write their about section a little bit differently because they're writing it to their ideal customer. So when they're writing their about section, it's a lot more tailored to here's my background, but here's all the pain points and struggles I know you have. Here's how my business can solve them. Because you're coming at it from you're looking for work perspective, just focus on highlighting your story to date, like a paragraph of this is the university I'm at. These are the modules I've been involved in as part of my studies. So highlighting key skills or modules you may have done that you think an employer would be interested in. and wrap it up with the fact that you are looking for new opportunities. The banner is where it gets underrated by a lot of people. I think when I was at university, my banner was potentially like sky high buildings, because I thought that looked cool for LinkedIn. But actually, banners are also a really great place to showcase what you're looking for, especially, for example, if you want to go into like a creative field. It's a chance to kind of show off a little bit of that creativity that you have. You don't necessarily have to be a designer to be able to make a good banner. Canva has loads of free ones that you can just edit to your taste. But the key thing about a banner is it's meant to have like a key statement on like who you help or like what your skill is. So for example, I have mine as helping world-class founders build influence and drive demand. So every bit of content that I create and who I want to attract from my page is founders. So I kind of call that out in the headline, in the banner itself, sorry. And then you'll see underneath, there's a few examples of companies that I've collaborated with, like Favicon, Girls in Marketing, Goethe Institute, and Girl Guiding. That just gives me that little bit of credibility of brands I've worked with that people are familiar with. So if they're part of any of your work experience you may have had during your degree or internships, you can always shout out the names of the companies in the bottom of the banner like that. So again, if somebody comes on your profile, they can instantly see, oh, this person's connected to this company in some way. And it just looks really good. But not to worry, like if you haven't worked with any brands before, you can even put your university logo on there. So again, people know like you're currently a student, where you're studying, and your tagline could literally be anything as simple as your name, and like marketing student or finance student, and then any logos or a photo of you on there. Again, it really does change depending on what you're going after. So if you have had work experience, you can showcase some of that on the banner. If you would just feel more comfortable, not having a tailored one, that is absolutely fine. But I would say if you're going after a more creative role, I would definitely recommend more of a tailored banner compared to if you're going for perhaps like a finance or IT role. Again, because it just kind of shows off your creativity. And then when employers are going on constant pages, if you've got something on there worth seeing, it catches their eye more than perhaps everybody else that has the skyline buildings. And again, there's so many profiles on LinkedIn, so you can kind of always just like stalk different people to kind of see all the different approaches people take. You've then got your experience section. So again, when you're at uni, like understandably, you've only had a set amount of experience to date, like as did I. So I actually did a lot of jobs with Unitemps when I was at uni. So I did like university open days where I like showed people around. We had like weekly summer camps where like kids would come into university and I would like talk with them. So you can add all of those to your experience section. I know sometimes people can think, oh, is it too junior? Like, do I even bother put it on there? The best way to think about it is like every bit of experience you have on there gives like your future employer or person looking at your profile a better understanding of like who you are and what you do. It may be that 5 years down the line, you can remove the fact that you did a university open day because that becomes less important, for example, when you've established that role. But if you're going for a job in like customer services, or a customer facing role, and you can say, I accompanied X amount of people around university all day, we did X, Y, and Z activities, I led this, you are still demonstrating that you have that skill set to that potential employer. So I would never think any bit of experience was like bad experience. Like the more you have on there, the better. And like tag the company, well, not tag the company, but include the company on there as well, which it kind of gives you the option to do. One thing to mention though, because I think this is one of the questions, on LinkedIn, you have an experience section, but you also have a volunteering section underneath the experience. So if you're unsure whether to put it in the experience or the volunteering, so for example, if it was a volunteering piece, put it in the volunteer section at the bottom. If it was like a full-time role, or you were getting paid to do it, then keep it in the experience. But just one thing to keep in mind on that is the volunteering section is a little bit further down, but you can still kind of put which companies it was. And I believe one of the questions was, what if you're like in one of the societies, for example, or like you're on the committee for one of them? Again, I would put that in the volunteering section because it's not necessarily like a full-time role that you could kind of like tag a company to, but it's still kind of key experience that you have. And again, showcasing the fact that you're on these committees, that you kind of have these roles, is a great place to put in your about section as well, in terms of like key roles and responsibilities that you've had to date. And when you're adding your experience, you don't necessarily have to write big paragraphs about everything that you've done, just nice bullet point summaries of the key tasks and responsibilities that you had on there. And with each job that you add, you're able to kind of add key skills that you kind of use as part of that job. It's really important that you do this, because I'll come on to applying for LinkedIn jobs a little bit later in the presentation. But when LinkedIn's kind of like assessing your credibility for a job, or like pushing you to employers, it can say to you, like, you have eight skills required for this job, like you would be a great fit in terms of helping you find that next job. But skills also show up at the bottom of your profile. These are really easy wins you can have for like you and your friends. It's basically a chance for people to endorse the fact that you have these skills. And any endorsement you have on your profile always looks great. So these can be like personal written testimonials. So I've had like bosses in the past, speak English, Carina. I've had bosses in the past leave me recommendations at the bottom about what I was like to work with. And again, that could still be from a university placement, a tutor, any past experiences that you have, just so that gives that employer that extra bit of reassurance about like what it's like to work with me. But also you can endorse each other on your skills, because anyone can say they have like all the skills in the world, but actually having another person's profile verify that on your profile and then endorse it, again, it signals to a future employer or recruiter that you do actually have these skills. You're not just kind of making them up to make your LinkedIn sound good. So I hope that's clear. And again, every LinkedIn profile is tailored to the individual. I think the main takeaways are clear photo above the head. Your headline should reflect either like the potential role that you're looking for or your current position in terms of what you're studying and where. About section should include who you are, your past work experience, any committees that you're on, and it should end with the fact that you are open to work and letting people know they can contact you. A banner, if you want to play it safe, you can just include a photo of like skylines. If you want to go in a more creative role, it's good to go in Canva and custom them. Experience, any jobs you've had, a few bullet points. Volunteer experience would be more your societies. And like, for example, I did guiding, volunteering, and just skills, getting people to endorse them for you. So in terms of networking and building connections, so nearly everybody obviously starts LinkedIn from zero. And there are lots of different ways to kind of go about connecting with individuals. You have to keep in mind that everybody started off in your shoes, and everybody had to kind of start somewhere. So the first people that I would recommend you begin connecting with are people that are in your immediate network. So anybody that's on your course, any of your lecturers, any of your friends from outside of university, any of your parents, friends that you perhaps known from when you were younger. Just getting as many people into your network that you know actually know you is giving you that initial credibility as a profile. Because, for example, when I get a connect request on LinkedIn and I can see somebody has 5 connections, I reject them. They're probably a very lovely person, but I just think if you only know 5 people, like, I don't really trust that. Like, is your profile fake? Whereas if I see someone has like 100 connections, for example, I think, oh, okay, this is probably a legitimate person, because 100 people have kind of confirmed them within their network that are like real people. So anyone on your course, any of your friends, your parents, your lecturers, any internships, etc. you may have done in the past, get everybody that you can into your network as a starting point. It's not cringy. You might feel really cringe sending it to somebody, but genuinely don't overthink this. Like, it is just getting your fundamentals in place for your brand. And why it's really important to do that is because on LinkedIn, you have something called a first connection, a second connection, and a third connection. So when someone becomes your first connection, that essentially means that you two are in the shared network with each other. That is somebody that you are connected to. Now, whenever somebody sends a connection request to somebody, it will come up with their name and it will say either second or third. If it says a second connection, that means that we both know somebody and we have a person in common. So if we're both connected to your lecturer, for example, I'm more likely to connect with you because I think, you know Sarah, I know Sarah, I'll connect with you. Whereas if it's a third person connect request, it means we really have no one in common, and I might be a little bit confused or unsure as to why you want to come into my network if you were to just do a cold connect request. So that's why it's really important to connect with as many people as you actually know, because a lot of early job opportunities do kind of come up through those kind of circumstances. When you're going on to build your network, you also get this section come up that's called people you may know from university. So I went to the University of Nottingham, so the connection ones that come up for me are people that went to the university. What's really good about connecting with like alumni from the university is that they were once in your shoes. So I wouldn't just go on people from the University of Nottingham and just connect with everybody under the sun. I would specifically go on there and connect with anybody that did my course, like, 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, if not more. And I would reach out to them and say, hey, I'm at the University of Nottingham, I'm studying German studies. I saw that you too studied that in final year from their profile. Do you have any advice or guidance to me of how you landed the job that you're in today? And again, because they went to your university, they're more likely to accept you because they were once in your shoes. You can look at what companies they work at, build that connection with them, figure out how they landed the opportunity, what skills were they looking for, what about the degree from the university you're at stood out to them, as a great way of building a relationship with them. And then the other one is people you may know in the area. Again, I'm not suggesting you just connect with every single person that may live in a radius of you, but sometimes people that you actually know come up in like these search when you've done these initial connect with people. So sometimes like, your old dance teacher might come up, or some like local businesses may come up. They can be great people to also add to your network if they're from a certain field of interest that you have in terms of going into. But I would definitely recommend the university ones, because if you think about how many alumni finish university every year, they were all in your shoes. And again, if someone sends me a request and went to the University of Nottingham, I'm more inclined to accept it because I think, oh, like we have that again, common ground. So with regard to how to find job opportunities, so obviously you can look for jobs directly on LinkedIn, and there are different ways of approaching this. So there is a job search feature that some of you may or may not have used to date. So essentially you use the jobs tab on LinkedIn to search for roles that match your skills and career interests. You can filter the jobs by location, industry, and experience level. You can set up job alerts so that, for example, if there's not as many on there as you could hope at this stage, you get emails pinged through of, oh, there's a new civil engineering role that's just come out, like go and take a look. You can use specific keywords related to the job using like the Boolean search, which basically just means like putting them in quotation marks. So like graduate marketing roles or entry-level software developer, to try and find more targeted opportunities. And this is where I said to you as well before, when you've put skills on your profile, LinkedIn will automatically, you'll see at the top of mine here, it says for you. These have been top picked for me, not because I've been searching for jobs, but just based on the skills I have on my profile and the experience I have on the profile. There's a list of jobs that they think I would, be a great hire for. And LinkedIn kind of does that automatically for you from having those skills. You can also filter it by like companies. You can go onto different company pages and follow theirs. So for example, if they ever post any new job postings, news and events, you can jump on posts like that. One thing to mention as well about this job search feature is you can kind of do it for you, hybrid, remote, and like within different sectors. You can do it by different locations. You can do it by the skill set that you have. But it is also important to note that LinkedIn isn't the only source of, not the only place you can go to find a job. Unitemps does also have a great list of jobs on there that you can go ahead and use, whether you want to find like temporary, permanent, graduate, or internship roles. Definitely utilize the Unitemps roles as well, as obviously not every job is put on LinkedIn and vice versa, to kind of widen your pool. Just on that company note page, so if you, for example, are in the engineering space and there's like 10 dream companies that you'd perhaps love to work for when you graduate, if you follow that company on LinkedIn and they do post one of those updates, like a new job, news, or event, and you're actively commenting on it, nobody finds that strange. So you might sit there thinking, oh gosh, it'd be really weird if I did that. Like, it's absolutely not. You're getting on their radar. If they say, we've got a new post, we've got a new hire, this is a new thing we've discovered within the business that we're kind of launching, get involved in the comment section, because the more you do it, people in that company will see that comment that you're leaving, and again, will start to become back of mind as a name. Another thing that you can do on LinkedIn, which is why it's really important when you connect with the alumni people, is that you can use the key search at the top and type in the word hiring. You can then use the filters that I've put in place here, which is posts, and then it's in the past month. So any post that's come up in the past month. And then there's this button here, posted by. And again, when I click posted by, it kind of gives you the option of who these people might be. So you can filter, and then you can kind of go by first connections. So then if everybody I've connected with to date is like hiring internally within their business, and I kind of use these filters, I will see it. And again, loads of people will apply for the jobs that you're going after. There's no doubt about that. The graduate market is tough. If you can be the one commenting on this post saying, saw this job advert, I've applied, really looking forward to kind of hearing from you, you're getting your name on the radar that most students are not there. And again, we hire a lot at Leather Brands for writers and for brand managers. The people that tend to get the jobs at our place have commented on my post specifically, or have directly messaged me and said, hey, I saw your post that you're hiring for X role. I'd love to hear more about the role. And again, it just signals to me that this person is genuinely interested, like they've taken the time to reach out to an employee of the business to find out more. And then when there's a list of like 100 applicants and your boss is saying to us, you know, any preference who we go for, I can turn around and say, well, these 3 people actually directly messaged me and wanted to know more about the role and were like really proactive about it. And they've been the ones that got the interviews. So I wouldn't lose sight of the fact that you're not bothering that person that's written the hiring post, like they want to find the right candidate. And there's no reason why that person shouldn't be you. But getting involved in the comments, messaging them directly, as long as you're like polite and professional about it, there's no issues whatsoever in doing that, especially when they're already in your network to start with. And again, if they're not in your network, you can send them a connect request and say, hi, I saw that you've got a role opening. I'd love to hear more about this opportunity. Again, the more you can proactively do to get on people's radar, the better. When you're starting from scratch, you know, you've got to kind of put in a lot of time now. People find my content, I show up on different feeds, people outside of my network are receiving my content, but that wasn't the case when I was getting started. I had to kind of put in a lot of legwork. So I've now got 32,000 followers, started at 0. I've had to put in a lot of legwork to build this community of people, find the right people I want in my network, put myself out there, send them messages. But it's a very normal thing to do. So never feel like you're being cringy or you're pestering somebody. The only thing you shouldn't do is if you have directly messaged somebody and said, I'm interested in this role that you posted about, if they don't respond to you, don't start sending lots of different messages, because that's what sometimes happens. It's like, oh, did you get my last message? Please, can you talk to me? Like, don't come across as desperate to speak to them. Like, be a little bit patient. People's pages and inbox get quite busy. Not everybody comes on LinkedIn every day. But at least you know you sent that initial message, which is the best starting point, and you'll have gone through the application process. But this is why content is also really important, because when people land on your page, as much as it's, you know, great to see your experience, etc., and your about section, if you're like actively creating content, you're giving yourself, so the best way to describe it is you have a LinkedIn profile. You are not coming up on a LinkedIn feed just because you have a LinkedIn profile if there's no content on there. It's only when you publish a piece of content do you then start appearing on the news feed, a bit like Instagram, for example. When you post, people have the opportunity to see it. And it's not just your first network that have the opportunity to see it, so do the second and third people within your network. So why it's really important to do that is, one, it kind of gives you the visibility, but it also gives you the chance to showcase a little bit more about what you know, what you're learning, and what you're doing. Now, you don't have to post 7 days a week to be visible on LinkedIn. It's very much a quality over quantity approach. So if you don't have something to say 7 days a week, don't. A good place to start can be as little as twice a week. Better off doing it during the week rather than on the weekends, just because a lot fewer people are on the platform over the weekend, as a lot of people kind of use LinkedIn as a bit of downtime whilst they're at work. But for example, I did this post here in August 2024. I was made redundant. At the time, I quite literally shook me to the core. I thought I meant it wasn't good enough, that I'd done something wrong. And I kind of told this story about what had happened to me at the time. Oh no, sorry, this is my friend Isabel Cowell. So she'd actually lost her job and they'd been made redundant. And rather than just hope for the best. She did a post and she was like, here's my situation, I've been made redundant, here's all the skills I have to date, I'd love to be able to kind of like find my new role through my network. So I kind of just put an example of how she approached that there. Other ones you can do, for example, are if you have like a university awards ceremony, or you kind of have your results kind of come out. And I can't quite remember when the semester's finished, but what have you got on kind of recent modules? You can kind of say, really pleased with what I got in my recent modules. I got a first on this topic. This is a really topic I'm really passionate about and would love to kind of explore a future job opportunity in. It may be that you worked on a project collaboratively from like a seminar piece of work that you kind of created a poster on, or that you presented. Again, just having a photo of you like with the presentation, with the poster, saying why it's important to do teamwork, how you work together collaboratively, why you chose that topic, just kind of showing your different skill set and knowledge. Or, for example, say you want to go in the finance sector and there's like been an IPO, or a business is kind of going on the market, or there's been a bit of uncertainty, for example, like with taxes or inflation, you can do like a bit of a commentary piece. So commentary pieces also do really well. If you found like a news article, you kind of want to kind of give an opinion on it. If you've seen a recent podcast, you can say, last night I listened to the Rest is Money podcast. I found X, Y, and Z that they said really interesting. Here's my key takeaways. Again, it just shows you're a bit more of a thought leader and you're switched on in the industry. So it doesn't always have to be directly what you're doing at university. Or, for example, I was a Girl Guide leader, I still am. I'll sometimes do a post like, oh, we took the kids camping over the weekend. Like, it was really great to kind of see the kids like develop their skills and have fun together, and why it's important to kind of create these experiences. Again, injecting a little bit of my personality and life into posts. It may be that every week you go to a park run on a Saturday and you do a post on why it's really good to kind of have these well-being breaks around your university work. Again, if you might think, oh, that's really random, like why would I post about that? But for all you know, if you're connected with the CEO of Argos, just I think first company that came to my head, and you're saying that you do park runs every Saturday and this is how it kind of gives you a relief from the work. For all you know, the CEO of Argos goes to park run every Saturday. It may relate to that bit of content that you've created. Or, a lot of company connections I now have are because I posted about guides, and a lot of people volunteer with guides in their free time, and that's opened a lot of doors to me to, guide leaders that have really good jobs. So it may feel like random to you to post about it, but actually there's purpose to it. And even if you're just doing that twice a week, one personal and one about your university work, you want to do 2 professional and industry commentary piece, like you're not going to like blow up overnight on the platform. I got about 5 likes a post for about a year. Now a lot of mine likes to pass the 100, 200, 300 mark. The more it's not about in the early stages how many likes you're getting. Like you get 5 likes but 100 impressions. That's 100 people that have now seen your post that wouldn't have seen your post if you hadn't posted it before. And there's an even simpler way to get started. If even just the idea of creating something for yourself makes you nervous, there's creators creating cheat sheets now on finance, on politics, perhaps fewer on history, but like marketing, legal sheets, negotiation sheets. If you can just share or repost other people's content and just give like, I really liked this post from such and such, even that as a starting point, compared to, not posting anything at all. So that's the first starting point in terms of how to find a job. So just to recap that really quick, use the search filter. You can use hybrid, remote, or in person. The more skills you have on the profile, the better chance you have of kind of being matched with great job opportunities, and also utilize the Unitemps site. Utilize writing the word hiring in the search bar and looking at first connections who may be hiring, and again, getting in touch with them and give a go, even just doing 1 or 2 pieces of content a week. Because whenever somebody comes on your profile, they'll start to kind of show up more so. One thing I will touch on very briefly, as I know this is a question that's going to come up later that I haven't covered, is a featured section. So every LinkedIn page has what's called the featured section. This can be leveraged in different ways. A great one, if you are kind of looking to go down a more creative route, is to put your portfolio in there as a presentation that people can go away and look at. If you're wanting to go into like a less creative role, and for example, you're not really sure what to put in there. If you started creating content where you're giving like a running commentary on like industry events, placements that you've been involved in, you can you can favorite them to kind of go into your featured section, so that when people are there, your top 3 posts, in your opinion, kind of come up there. So that might be one where you give an industry commentary, one where you talk about your dissertation, and one where you're kind of just breaking down a project or idea that you've been involved in. So if you have got like work experience in a portfolio, that's a great thing to put in there. If you've ever been featured in like a blog or website, or you've written something for the university marketing team or anything like that, you can feature that as a link in the featured section. But if not, it's a great chance to, again, pin some posts that you've written there, so that if you posted something 6 months ago, but it actually said a lot about you, rather than have to keep posting about that, people can find that in your featured section. In addition to building relationships with people that you kind of know from like an alumni perspective and within your network, it's also important to kind of build relationships with recruiters. Now, as I kind of briefly mentioned at the start, I don't mean this as a brag, I didn't apply for any jobs when I graduated. I graduated into a global pandemic, the world was shutting down, and I was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? But what I did have on my LinkedIn profile at the time was that I was at the University of Nottingham, that I was a 4th-year student, that I was studying German, and a few placements and things that I'd done as part of my year abroad and as part of my course, which actually led to a recruiter to finding me through keyword searches, because they would have typed in, in the search bar, like German graduate or German students. And he actually came across my profile, directly reached out to me off the back of my profile and said, would you be interested in going for this job? It's a job that I'd never in my life applied for. I'd never heard of the kind of job. So it was within the consulting space. And I was like, oh, you know what, we're in a pandemic, I just need to give it a go. It turned out I was actually quite good at the job. So I think sometimes when you're like in your 4th-year student, you don't necessarily like know what job you want when you graduate. Like I didn't know what job I wanted, but actually having that information on your profile can actually attract recruiters to come and ask you about opportunities that perhaps you would never, one, have applied for, or two, have thought to. So recruiters are really easy to find on the platform. They have it as a job title. So you can type in, like in the search bar, recruiters, and you can use the Boolean search. So you can put it in quotation marks recruiter, and then you can put and in like capital letters, and then another like quotation mark of like the industry you're looking at. So like recruiters, engineering, and then it'll kind of come up with a list of people that are recruiters in the field that you're interested in. Send them a connect request. Recruiters are always welcome to talk to you, happy to talk to you. Like their job is literally to help you find a job. So don't see them as like intimidating to talk to. And let them know, what roles you're interested in, share them your CV, show them, and your LinkedIn profile will give them easy access to you. Engage with their content. So recruiters are quite frequently posting on LinkedIn, we're hiring for a junior engineer in the London region. Like here's a link to apply, comment and share, the content that they're creating. Or I'd love this opportunity, or if you see an opportunity that you think would be like great for your friend, you can kind of comment and say, hey, Jay, I think you'd be a really great fit for this role. And again, you're putting that person on the recruiter's radar as well. But just ensure you're like engaging in a professional and respectful manner, like when building this. So the recruiters aren't your friends. Even if they are trying to like get you a job, just kind of making sure you're always kind of keeping the relationship you have with them professional. But then also you can have your profile set up in a way that shows that you're open to work. There are 2 different ways to do this. You have an open to work button so that absolutely everybody knows you're open to work. So when recruiters are looking to kind of fill certain job roles, if you've got your LinkedIn set up to say open to work in your settings, you'll kind of be on their radar to connect with. So that's what mine was on at the time when I got recruited for the German role. But if for whatever reason you're a graduate on this call and you perhaps don't want your current employer to know that you're looking for a new job, there is also a way to have open to work on the platform that's for recruiters only, so that the LinkedIn have set it up so your current employer does not see on your profile that you're open to work, or when they're potentially doing further recruitment. And not everybody knows that there are 2 distinctions there. So the fully open to work, if you're a student, you're kind of happy for everybody to know that and kind of get yourself the job. If you're in a current grad role that you're potentially not loving at the moment, I would set it as open to work recruiters only, just so your current employer doesn't see that you've set it up in that way. And again, when you're playing around with your LinkedIn settings, that should become clearer to you. So I touched on a few ideas earlier in terms of like what you can create content on. So you can share a recent project or achievement. I've kind of given you a little post idea here. You haven't got to write all of this down. You are going to get the recording through to kind of go back through this. But in terms of why that works, it showcases that practical application of your academic learning, giving potential employers insight into your capabilities and growth. You can write about your career goals and aspirations, let your network know what kind of jobs and roles you're going to be looking for in the future, and it kind of signals to recruiters that you're ready for work. Key learning from a course or internship that you've been doing, it highlights real-world experience, shows potential employers that you're proactive, gain potential practical knowledge, and are eager to continue learning. And again, it's not always going to be just recruiters that are looking at these posts. It will be, people from the companies themselves as well. Ask for advice. There's definitely no harm in doing that. I see a lot of people actually just do posts where they're actually asking people for like their advice on a topic. Maybe they've been made redundant, maybe they're looking to graduate soon, maybe they're wanting to like pivot industry. It invites engagement from professionals and can help expand your network. You can share like a helpful resource or article, so you don't necessarily have to do it on this one, but you're more than welcome to. What a lot of people do when they've attended a webinar, for example, is they'll say, yesterday I attended the webinar that was ran by this person. And again, just from that connection perspective, if you're name dropping other people, it shows you're somewhat connected to kind of what that person's been involved in, kind of what your key learnings and takeaways were from that webinar. So people do that quite frequently. And again, if you do come to a lot of the Unitemps webinars, which I recommend you do, every time you've been to a different one, you could do a LinkedIn post about kind of what your key learnings and takeaways were. Again, shows you're proactive outside of your studies, kind of wanting to broaden your knowledge. And then celebrating any accomplishments or milestones. So like personal milestones help you connect with your network on like a human level. So as much as it is a professional network, everybody obviously has a life outside of LinkedIn as well. And it may actually be that you connect with people on like a common interest that you have. So I know people, for example, that post about like books they've just read and why they really enjoyed reading it. And then they kind of end the post with what books are you guys reading at the moment, or a lot of the way they position it is, we have like an hour commute every day to work. Like that could be a really dull time to just sit and look out the window. I read my favorite book. Like, what book are you reading on your commute to work? They're still tying it back to some work or professional situation, but it just again invites that broader network. It doesn't always have to be super industry specific. So in terms of just like some key takeaways before I move into questions. Personal branding in today's day and age is essential. Start building your personal brand early. It helps you stand out in a crowded job market. Genuinely can't say this enough of how competitive it's going to be when you all graduate, even if you get the top marks on your course, even if you get a first, even if you've done all these different things, without it all being on your LinkedIn and having this different places that employers can go and find this information about you, you can kind of get lost into a sea of people very quickly. Optimize your LinkedIn profile, ensure your profile is professional, up to date, and tailored to the roles you're targeting. Engage your content, share knowledge and experiences to showcase your skills, build credibility, and connect with professionals in your field. Networking is key. Focus on building meaningful relationships. You don't have to connect with every man and his dog, just the people that you know and you think will have some form of impact on the future role that you want. So targeting specifically recruiters and alumni from university to increase the chances of them connecting with you. Set your profile to open to work. Let recruiters know you're actively looking for opportunities by turning on this feature. It's also worth saying on the recruiter front, I get recruiters in my inbox quite a lot asking me to go and do personal branding at other agencies. You don't always have to say yes to the first job that they send your way, but kind of just building that. But if you say no to them, that doesn't mean that they won't reach out to you again with a future one. Like, they're very used to people saying, no, that's not for me, but please keep me in mind for future ones. And then just persistence pays off. So like, keep applying, keep engaging with your network, and keep seeking advice from other people. Like, staying proactive and resilient in a job search is really important. And again, having a personal brand, it's not just like a cliche thing people say. It really does maximize your chances in the job market. So that's everything from my initial presentation. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Hopefully, kind of as we went through, you were able to kind of like have some new takeaways as we went through there. I'm just going to take a couple of questions now from the ones that are in the chat and the ones that have been sent through. In terms of having LinkedIn Premium, it's not necessarily fundamental to have. The better reason to have Premium, for example, in the stage of looking for job opportunities, is that it kind of gives you more connect requests and scope for what you're able to search for. And it actually shows you who's been on your profile. So it's actually really helpful to see who's viewing your profile, because if like a potential recruiter or someone from the industry has gone on your profile and has been a little bit curious, it gives you a good idea as to who you're actually attracting with your current profile. You don't have to have LinkedIn Premium, no, in terms of having open to work on. Doesn't mean hiring a volunteer. You don't need LinkedIn Premium to show open to work. That is just, I've never had Premium, and I've always been able to have open to work on, to potentially have a little play around with your settings on that one. So in terms of some questions that came through before the webinar, I'm just going to go through some of them now. So there was one, I'm getting views and impressions, but not messages. How do I rectify that? By posting more and then there's a follow-up question saying by posting more content. One, it really depends on like the size of your current audience and like what the content is that you're creating. 9 times out of 10, people don't directly message you because of a post that you've put out there. They would go to like the comment section on that post. If you wanted to actually get more people DMing you off the back of them, one very easy fix you can do is at the bottom of each post, right? DM me if you're an employer in this space, or DM me if you have any advice on how to kind of get to that next step of what I'm looking for. Because whenever you message somebody, like you're going into like their private inbox, so a lot of the time people just don't do that. They will kind of engage with you back and forth in the comment section, and when they've built that relationship with you, move to the DMs. So a lot of the time just actively writing at the bottom of the post, I'd love to kind of chat to you about this. What I used to put quite a lot was, if anybody would ever want a coffee chat, let me know, we can jump on a call. And I had a lot of like 10-minute coffee chats with lots of different people that I was getting to know on LinkedIn. It is a good sign that you're getting views and impressions. It means you are kind of creating the right kind of content. But again, you just need to signal to people that you want to have them DMing, but also take the initiative to DM people yourself. DM, direct message. We've gone through some examples of building a profile. In terms of how to get engagement on posts, it really is just about, one, being persistent, and two, just kind of creating content that people would want to engage in. The best kind of content is when people gain value from you. So I used to do a lot of content pieces that were like just about me. And actually, when I switched my approach to help other people, I actually started to drive a lot higher engagement. So an example of this is, say you've been in a university project, rather than just say, really proud, I completed a university project last week on X topic. Do a few takeaways of like what you learned as part of that journey to kind of help other people. So as part of my learnings, I learned X, Y, and Z about the industry, like really curious to see kind of what direction this will go in the future. Like, what are your thoughts? Like inviting people, giving some people actual insight that they could go away and use. So like that's why a lot of the sheets I create are like how to get a job on LinkedIn, how to write content for your target audience, colour brand psychology. I'm giving people like a resource that they can go away and use, which is why like the podcast ones, for example, like really great examples of, I just listened to this podcast, I learned X, Y, and Z about it, and then who else is interested in that industry can kind of go away and use that learning. There's a question that says here, like, what is the best way to describe a career break on LinkedIn when you were looking after family? There is no harm in adding a section that kind of says, in there, career break between set years. That is part of life, and employers are not like naive to that. It's up to you if you kind of leave it blank or fill it in, but there's definitely no harm in kind of just putting the year to year of the time you had to spend looking after family. You haven't necessarily got to go into all the details in your experience section itself, but again, it's just that light signal to employers as to this is why there's a gap in your experience. There's a question on what makes a LinkedIn post good. Please, if you are going to use AI to write them, please take out all the M dashes that we keep seeing in content. There's a lot of AI garbage turning up on the feed at the moment. What makes a post good, that it feels authentic to you. It's something that you would actually say to people in real life. You're doing line breaks between sentences, so it's not clunky paragraphs. If you add like an image to it, that kind of adds a nicer feel to it, whether it be like a photo of a project that you've been involved in, or a cover of a podcast that you've listened to, in terms of catching the eye. And whenever there's something called like writing a good hook. So your post will come up, but you always have to click the button see more. The best way to approach it is that the first line you write is 60 characters and the second line is 40 characters, to build intrigue. And that will, if you've written a good first 2 lines, that's essentially what makes people click see more and continue reading. Is being part of the Student Society Committee, valuable experience to put on there? It absolutely is. Again, you never know, for example, if you were on the such and such committee or the treasurer, someone that's your future employer could have also been the treasurer of that role. You're kind of showing your responsibilities. You're showing that you kind of went out of your way alongside your work to do this. You can be part of a team. Like every little bit of experience that you gain is super useful. In terms of consistency and frequency of posting, it really does vary. If you want to become a content creator and that is what you want to do on the platform, then it does kind of take consistency in posting. So the content I create for my clients goes out 7 days a week. I have a very busy life, so I don't always have time to create content for myself. But as a general rule of thumb, I always try and aim to post between 3 and 5 times a week. But depending on the different industry that you want to go after, even just as simple as once or twice a week can be a great place to start. Again, even if you're just resharing what somebody else has posted. But again, never force a post. Like if you're not sure if you should post it because you don't know if it's relevant, just ask yourself, does it tie to like the future job I want? Does it tie to something I've learned in the here and now? Is there like some form of like reflection or takeaway that others can take from this? If yes, post it. If not, don't. And a lot of content creators like to think of it in terms of like content pillars. So if something doesn't fall in one of these categories, I'm not going to post about it. You can pivot your personal brand direction. So a lot of people do a degree in something and then change their mind. I have a friend that has an engineering degree and is now a personal brand manager. So it is definitely a great place to like show employers that you're looking to like pivot in your career on the platform. Obviously you want your degree to work out, but sometimes, 2 or 3 years in, you realize actually this isn't that interesting to me. That wasn't necessarily the case for me. I just kind of fell into this role. I was recruited by a guy called Chris Donnelly, who's one of the biggest creators on the platform, and you may have seen some TikToks of his as well. But I actually had 2 German-related jobs directly when I finished university. I used to create content about German and languages and why it's really important to learn. But because I created content on the platform, I was then recruited by a personal branding agency. And then because I didn't necessarily need to be known for speaking German anymore, I pivoted my messaging to start being about how to build a brand, kind of what goes into a good profile, and how to scale and grow an account. So it's definitely possible to do it. At first, it may feel a little bit strange to your audience why you've gone from talking about engineering to marketing, but over time, they just start to forget the engineering part was ever there, because it's whatever you're putting in front of people is what you kind of become known for. What matters more at the beginning, experience or content in the featured section? You don't necessarily put experience in the featured section, so you have a featured section and an experience section. So again, just to recap, featured is for any articles you've been featured in, if you've written any blogs, anything that's been published. If you have a portfolio, you can put together like a Canva presentation of work that you've been involved in. And if you don't feel like you have anything to put in your featured section, when you start creating content, 3 posts, that one that talks about yourself, it's perhaps some industry commentary or some work you've been involved in. You can put them in the featured section and you can always chop and change them. You might think, well, how will I know which ones to put in? Typically, what people tend to do is the ones that get the most likes, reacts, or comments, they're usually the ones that people put in the featured section because they're the ones that like gain the most attention when they've been posted in the first place. In terms of what content formats work best for beginners, there is no hard rule for this. It is kind of really whatever your experience is and what you feel most comfortable talking about. If you feel more comfortable sharing a news article with a bit of commentary, that can be an approach you take. If you feel confident talking about like your studies or your hobbies, that can be what you can post about. There really is no short versus long form approach in terms of what works best if you're a beginner. It's more what you feel most comfortable and confident to talk about. Is it better to engage with big creators' posts or focus on creating my own content from the start? In all honesty, so a lot of the accounts I run are big creators. So I took an account from 8,000 followers to 90,000 followers in the space of a year. I'm going to be completely transparent with you. Like if you comment on that post, of like a big creator, that big creator isn't really noticing you. They have so many other things kind of going on in their comment section that they might reply to you, but you're not going to be on their radar if they're getting like 400, 500 comments. So I would definitely follow big creators to learn from them and see kind of what kind of content that they're creating. But at the stage you guys are at, I would focus more on commenting and interacting with people that are like other students or kind of more industry specific, where actually you do feel like you're having like a meaningful comment that you're adding to a post. And can LinkedIn realistically help land a first job, or is it more about conversations and ability? I mean, I literally got my first job from having a LinkedIn account. That's how a recruiter was able to find me. Full transparency, I didn't necessarily go to like a good school. I didn't have any connections like when leaving university. I'm from a very like working class background. Through having that LinkedIn account and having my experience on there, a future employer was able to find me and get me a job. So I definitely wouldn't underestimate. It used to be 1%, I believe it's now gone up to 2%. Only 2% of people that have a LinkedIn account are actually active on the platform. So it's one of the easiest platforms to kind of have that visibility on, compared to like TikTok, Instagram, etc., that are obviously very saturated. So they're all the questions I'll take for now. Obviously, it is now past. I am Carina Farrell on LinkedIn. So if there is any like burning questions that you have that I didn't have time to answer on this webinar, you're almost welcome to send them over to me, and I'll get back to you on that. Hopefully you've all learned something that you feel that you can kind of take away, go away and implement. And I think the main thing to say is, before you kind of even think about creating content, get your profile itself polished first. In terms of, if you had to prioritize from everything I've said, getting your profile ready is the most important thing as a starting point, because that could be found today, tomorrow, next week by a recruiter, and you want to make sure that you're in the best place for doing that. So yeah, thank you very much all for your time, and sorry if I didn't get around to every question, but please do feel free to drop me a message on LinkedIn and connect with me, while we're more than happy to answer your question there. Thank you.